Talk about battle honors, how the different regiments receive them. In other words, if you were on a particular battlefield, did you automatically get the honors?
I'll be doggone if I know. As far as I know, there were no rules and regs, but I also know that there was a sense of honor, and if a unit had put Malvern Hill on their flag, and they were back in the rear and didn't do anything at Malvern Hill, they wouldn't have rules and regs to answer to. They would have the guys who survived Malvern Hill to answer to. So you better damn well have been engaged before you put battle honors on your flag.
Okay, thank you.
Just one other question. Being a graduate of VMI, could you say a few words about the role of the cadets at VMI during the war?
It was fabulous.
I knew that.
Say something else.
In the history of the world, there's only been 3 times that a military school has been engaged in battle as a fighting unit. Once in the wars between Sparta and Sparta and Athens, the military school from Sparta was engaged and lost. Once in I think it was the 30 Years' War, the L'École Polytechnique, the French military school, was engaged in battle and lost. And once on May the 15th, 1864, here on this site, the VMI Corps of Cadets came down this hill, split in 2 on either side of that house, reconstituted themselves on the other side, found themselves in a position so hot that any veteran would retreat, but instead they were stupid because they were 16, and they charged up the hill and captured the northern position. So it was the only time in the history of the world that a cadet corps won a battle. And I just coincidentally on my and I was saying earlier to Jane Cabral, up here on this hill was a Pennsylvania cavalry officer who observed the cadets coming up the hill and said, "That's the most amazing thing I have ever seen. If I ever have a son, I wish that he would go to VMI." He did have a son who went to VMI, graduated in 1901, a fellow by the name of George Catlett Marshall. So, interesting connection. Yes, sir.
The flag was from South Carolina of the Marion Artillery. I know why it's called the Marion Artillery.
That was because they were from the town of Marion, South Carolina, so that explains Marion. And they were artillery because they used cannons. And if you use cannons, you call that artillery.
But the name Marion came from a general in the Revolutionary War, Francis Marion.
That's right. Francis Marion in the town of Marion, South Carolina. That's good. Somebody's been studying his history. The town of Marion, South Carolina was named after Revolutionary War General Francis Marion. And that's where that unit came from. Yes, ma'am.
I suddenly remember hearing a story about Minnesota, that Minnesota has some battle flags that
Minnesota's got the Minnesota Historical Society has got the battle flag, the 28th Virginia that was captured. I said we had 13 out of the 15 flags. One doesn't exist, and one is in Minneapolis.
And we want it back.
And we want it back. Okay. And when the War Department, when Congress said send all these flags, the guy that had captured that flag had borrowed it from the War Department to take it to a reunion, basically to brag. Okay, so the War Department records saying loaned and not yet returned. Okay, and the guy never brought it back, and he died. And his daughter thought it was Dad's flag, so she kept it for her life. When she died, she left it in her will to the Minnesota Historical Society. And recently, we said, it's our flag, send it back. And there was a governor there in Minnesota. Let's see, he used to be a wrestler. His response was, "We won it fair and square." What a jerk. And so it's become a political issue. Now, I went to my friend Dick Moe, who's from Minnesota. He's the president of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And he had been Walter Mondale's chief of staff, and he's a fabulous guy. I said, "Dick, can you intervene?" And he goes, "Not with that bunch of idiots." So the flag is still in Minneapolis. But it belongs to us. Yes, sir.
In a book of history of battle, I was fascinated with the author's declaration that the flag became a sacred object to the troops.
Yeah.
I find this incomprehensible in today's terms,
Well,
but it was repeated endlessly and has only recently seemed to have declined. They're the objects.
Yeah.
Strange things for somebody to get so excited about.
Well, during the war, you got to understand the flag was not just an ornament during the war. In battle, it's noisy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of smoke. Okay. So if you're the commander of a regiment, you can yell at guys all day long and they won't hear you and won't see you. But the flag was visible to the troops. So the regimental commander would stand next to the flag and say, "Advance the colors," and the colors would move forward and everybody would go, "Hey, the flag's going forward, let's move it forward." And then he'd say, "Retreat the colors," and everybody would back up. So it was the focal point, the communications device. Now, on top of that, if you were on the other side and you see 200 guys out there and you're going to say, "Well, I'm going to aim my rifle and shoot at somebody," who do I want to shoot at? The guy with the flag. Okay, so what's the most dangerous position on the field? The guy with the flag. Okay, what's the biggest honor on the field? The guy with the flag. So the accounts of men stepping forward, despite the fact that the 26th North Carolina flag that we've got in our collection, 20 men at the Battle of Gettysburg were shot down with that flag. 20 men. Now, how do you get the 20th guy to say, "Hey, hey, Jimmy, pick up the flag"? I ain't touching the flag.
But he did.
But he did. So it became the biggest thing you could do in a battle was capture the other side's flag. The worst thing you could do in a battle was lose yours. Because going home and saying, "Hey, Mama, can you stitch me another one? We lost ours." Was not. So it became just an enormously emotional thing to the soldiers themselves. And that gets passed down through the generations. Yes, ma'am?
Kind of on that note, I've heard these great stories of people like hiding their flags or chucking them up or all these different things rather than surrender them. Do you have any flags that...
Yeah, we do. As a matter of fact, when I took this job, I didn't want to go see the flag of the 41st Virginia, which is Betty and my great-grandfather, his unit, until I could get my father there. And we went in to see it, and it was goosebumpy. Okay, now, Army of Northern Virginia battle flag, but it was just one triangle of it, one corner of it. Because at Appomattox, you had to surrender your flag. And the guys didn't want to surrender their flag. So people would go up and rip off a piece of it and stick it in their pocket to take it home. And they left a remainder for the surrender process. And that happened a lot. Equally, if you captured a flag and the lieutenant or sergeant says, "Turn that over to headquarters." Hey, come on, man, I captured it. Hand-to-hand combat. I was a brave guy. I want to prove to my wife or my neighbors that I was a brave guy, so I'll rip off a piece of that flag and stick it in my pocket. And that's why you see a lot of those flags with big hunks ripped out of them. And that was one side or the other said, "I want a souvenir and I can't take the whole flag, so I'll take a piece of it."